Padres, Dodgers. I'm assuming you were there for some, if not all, of this series. Would I be correct in saying that?
You would be correct. I was there for all three. It was a good time.
Love that. So let's start there with this series. And Dave Roberts over the offseason was rather critical of his team, saying he didn't feel like they had the drive in the series against the Padres. Well, that didn't look to be the case in this regular season series. So what did you see from this dominant series victory from the Dodgers over the Padres?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. And obviously, we know what happened last October, and the Padres kind of had all that momentum really building. And even with the slow start, it was kind of like, well, you know what? Fernando Tatis isn't here. That's a pretty big deal. Comes back April 20th. They were 9-11 at that point. They started to kind of build some momentum. And then they had the series even before that weekend in San Diego against the Dodgers. They won that first game. You're starting to think, okay, maybe this is the group you thought you'd see. And then the Dodgers take the final two. And so another matchup, the next weekend at Dodger Stadium, maybe a chance to kind of regroup. It sounded like Bob Melvin kind of got into them a little bit about, look, this needs to be better. This needs to be cleaned up. And then the Dodgers sweep them. So is it too early to talk about, statements? Maybe, but it felt pretty important. This is a Padres group that's now really full and looking like it should be kind of getting going now with Tatis back in the lineup. You have Soto hitting well again. So to see that happen the way it did, the lack of timely hitting, the lack of hitting at all, the fact that it's May 16th and the Reds have a better OPS than the Padres right now, it's all pretty surprising. And meanwhile, the fact that the Dodgers have won 14 of 16, yes, it is mid-May, but that lead is growing a lot.
Let's start there with the Padres. First off, when you say it sounded like Bob Melvin got into him a little bit, what happened there?
Yeah, I think after that Minnesota series, he basically just sort of said, and that was right before the weekend sweep, basically just said, this isn't good enough, and kind of challenged them to, all right, it's time to kind of get going, get another gear. I thought it was interesting that after the sweep on Sunday, I think he struck a little bit more of a positive tone and just said, kind of, they got to do it. At some point, you got to sustain this. It sort of seemed like they might have been turning a corner a little bit, and then the last week happened. So it definitely took some wind out of the sails. Look, if they get going here and they win 10 straight or they win, 11 of 12 at some point here, we might be talking about something different. But as it stands right now, this just hasn't been the group that you would think might be able to kind of build the momentum of last postseason. And again, I think the fact that the Dodgers have been as hot as they've been after taking a step back from spending just makes those issues in San Diego a little bit more glaring.
It's been like weirdly bad for the Padres. Everybody was talking about them being the best offense in baseball, pretty much consensus. Well, the best offense is the Padres. Well, as of right now, with runners in scoring position, the Padres are hitting under 200, which over the course of a full season has never happened. Now, do I believe that will stay true for 162? I do not. But a quarter of the season, they're on pace to do something that has never happened with an offense that is elite or should be elite. Are they pressing the panic button when it comes to the offense, or is it just sort of at some point you gotta hit your way out of this?
I think it's probably that. I mean, I don't think they're going to hit 198 with runners in scoring position the rest of the year. I think it's the worst in baseball right now. I will say, though, I think if you're a Padres fan, you'd like to hear a little more urgency. I thought it was interesting to hear Manny Machado after the sweep kind of talk about, you look at these baseball cards, there's a lot of good players here. And yeah, that's true, but it's not April anymore. This is mid-May that it's still been scuffling. And at some point, you got to kind of put it into gear. And not to mention, they're not second right now. There's a young Arizona team, and I'm not saying I think the Diamondbacks are going to finish higher by the end of the year, but at some point, you got to kick this into gear. It doesn't look like the Dodgers are slowing down here. As bad as it's been with runners in scoring position, it hasn't been great even without runners in scoring position. So they really need to find a way to get it going. It seems like Bogarts kind of carried them early on and looked like a great signing. He's kind of slowed down a little bit. Soto's been mega hot and looks like he's back to being himself right now. Tatis has been pretty good, but you look at the other pieces right now, they're not getting much help either. So, they need Machado to kick it to another gear. They need some of these other depth pieces to get going, because at some point that lead might just get a little bit insurmountable.